All right, go ahead, introduce yourself, who you help, and what you do.
Thanks, Lori, for having me today. I'm Anvita. I'm a career transition coach, and my specialty is empowering burnt out, high achieving corporate leaders to rise to become the CEOs of their own soul aligned business. I utilize my expertise in navigating four career pivots over the last decade, putting words to people's deeper challenges, and then road mapping to help guide women on a clear, impact-driven path forward that also allows them to take care of their health, make time for their passions, and spend time with their people.
Sounds amazing. Now, how did you get into doing that? Because you mentioned four career pivots, so you could talk a little bit about those.
For sure. So I started out as an engineer in college because that was what I was surrounded with growing up. So it seemed like a clear path to security. And after going through college, I didn't resonate with that path. So then I switched to the next best that I could find that felt like something different, but also used the skills that I'd built in 4 years, which was business analytics. Again, learned great things, found it wasn't a fit, so I pivoted again. And this time, I would say this is the first path I landed on that I truly was passionate about, which was human resources. And so once I pivoted to human resources, I really found a huge difference in feeling more fulfilled day to day, feeling like I was making an impact in a way that I was passionate about. I felt like before I saw the impact, but I was taking more of a mind-driven path than a heart-driven path. So I feel like that's where I switched more into heart-centered career pathing. And from there, I had another epiphany a few years into it that while on some levels I felt quite fulfilled, I found joy in my work, I found purpose in my work, there was also a part of me that felt like I could make a deeper impact. And so that's where my coaching career was birthed. And I'd been doing some mental health advocacy work in my 5 to 9 after corporate. And that really tapped me into a passion for creating safe spaces for people to talk about their deeper challenges and really for people to see a life past those deeper challenges and not letting the challenges define their path. And that's a similar process that I went through. So that is where my passion for career transition coaching specifically came from, is that I feel like career is a very fundamental pillar of one's life. And whether we like it or not is going to impact the rest of our life, right? Whether that's, you know, most people are spending anywhere from 20 to 40 hours at work, and 20 is probably on the like lesser side, right? 10 even. That's a significant amount of your week. So it's significant enough that it makes an impact. And so that's what my mission is now. Just given like my own career path, like look in 10 years, I've made 4 pivots and I'm still thriving. I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to live a full life, resource myself, and I'm only growing and going up from here. So I think that goes to show that you don't have to follow one track career. I think a lot of people who even stay in one field have a lot of career transitions within that field, right? They may go to different parts of that field. They may learn to specialize in different areas. They may serve different types of people within that field. So career transitions kind of an inevitable. And I think it's an area that a lot of people need support right now, just given the pace of adaptability, the pace of things growing, the pace of tech growing, like all of that is impacting people's careers. And so being able to pivot is a skill is becoming an essential skill. So that's essentially what's birthed my passion for becoming a career transition coach.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned your 5 to 9. Is that something that you helped people with in that 5 to 9?
Yes, indirectly. So I was more focusing on, I would say, mental wellness in general, mental health. And on that journey, I realized that health goes a lot past just the mind. I think a lot of times we work from like what the neck up when it comes to health, including talk therapy. And I had to go deeper to actually feel better. So I went into somatic health. So that I would say what I coach in now is a lot broader than what I did in the mental health advocacy world. But I do believe that was a key part in learning how to balance between health and career and how to integrate the two.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece because I've heard so many stories about people ruining their health because of their career to sometimes the point where they can no longer work no matter how much they want to. It's just not an option anymore. Um, so that is like so critical, and especially to get people before they get to that point.
That is what I decided to specialize in because honestly, I hit burnout or almost hit burnout multiple times in my own. Um, I have given up my health in the past to have a career. And I think that a lot of high achieving women are very prone to that, or women with um, big dreams, I think, learn to translate that into achievement when they're little. I think that's a common experience amongst a lot of my friends and myself. I found that came from the fact that I got a lot of validation for achievement, and achievement was a common route to security and stability. I think those are the deepest desires I see amongst my clients and the people I talk to is that desire for stability and financial security, which is great. But like you said, if we neglect our health, we get to the point where that financial security isn't even possible. So it's about finding the balance and also realizing that like there are ways besides achieving to build a career path that provides, right? That's not the only way. I think that's been my biggest liberation in this process. So that's why that my going through my own kind of experience with hitting burnout, almost hitting burnout, I've learned how to identify the signs ahead of time, right? Like, and then build a process for myself where I can come back while still showing up in my career. I don't, if identifying it soon enough and having easy techniques to get myself back on the path before it builds up is the key to not completely having to shut down work in order to take care of myself. There's ways to flex it, and that is really my specialty is helping people flex that depending on their unique job as well as their unique health needs.
Yeah, would you say setting boundaries is a part of that?
Yes, boundary setting is so crucial because it I think boundaries are connectors, right? Boundaries are sort of the line at which I can take care of my needs while also showing up for others. And I say while also because I was at least conditioned in many situations to think that I had to sacrifice my own needs to show up for others more. And what I realized through actual experience was that neglecting my own needs actually didn't allow me to show up as well for others. And so that's where I started setting my own boundaries and actually looking at boundaries as a form of power, internal power, because I can't pour from a cup that's not filled. So even if I'm like moving through the motions of showing up, I can't actually show up effectively if I'm not taking care of my boundaries. So once I saw them as one and the same, once I saw as taking care of myself as part of the path to helping others and serving the world deeply, that's where I think that my boundaries actually became effective.
So I'm going to ask you about your networking journey. Have you invested in networking groups or coaching on networking or anything of that sort?
Both, both. So I've invested thousands of dollars in, going through extensive coaching modalities and programs and just basically testing out different somatic wellness, personal development, and leadership skills, all sorts, the whole kind of 9 yards to really equip myself not only to make my own career transitions, but also to be an effective career transition coach for then others. I've also, along that journey, a lot of those investments have been networking groups just to one, connect to, in entrepreneurship and almost any career path journey, having a community is so important. And I think I found this to be true in my job search, which I can talk about more kind of, I've gone through different phases of the entrepreneurial journey as well. But I found that the networking was like a core, it was something I often shied away from early in my corporate career. I only did it as much as I had to. And the irony was that my career of passion in corporate, which is human resources, is a very people-centric field. It requires a lot of networking and influencing in order to get things done and move the needle on the people side of the business. So it was kind of like, okay, I knew that I needed to do it. And not only that, but connection, and not just connection, but intimate connection, like deep connection is a core value of mine. It's really something that fills my cup. I think that's why I'm drawn so much to people-centric career paths. As like I'm meant to serve people. So I found that like I think reframing it from like networking is connection helped me make those investments, both not just from a monetary standpoint, but also from a time and energy standpoint. And um I'll say the other thing is, I know that finances can sometimes feel like a limitation to some people to get into like the inner circles. And the best part is there's a lot of free networking available. But like I said, money isn't the only investment, it's the time and energy. But that we can create. That's actually part of my work is helping people see that they can find the time for things that matter, find the time and energy, and then creating actually more energy available to them through the day. Because even when you're spending energy, if that work is inherently fulfilling, it's actually a battery charger. So your battery can actually go for more of the day. So that is what I find. I think I answered your question, long story short, but that's kind of been my experience with investing in other containers.
Yeah, I found that as well. Of course, not every container has given me the same ROI or as much ROI as I wanted.
That's fair. I think over time, and I would say I'm still on this journey regarding ROI. I think at first, especially at the beginning of my journey, there was a huge almost attachment to ROI. And I found
Yeah,
that, I don't know what your experience has been with ROI, but I found that I had to change my perspective on ROI because a lot of the ROI, the personal ROI I found was driven by how I related to the container and how I chose to show up in the container. That's 90%. The coach that's holding the container or the person who's running the expert is just an expander of what I already had inside me. So I think what helped with my ROI, sometimes, is hindsight is 2020. So a lot of it was just kind of allowing the knowledge to just sink in and really like, we had this thing in HR when we talked about like how to spend your time. And I'm a huge proponent of 70% experience, 20% like connection, coaching, mentoring, etc., and 10% learning. And so 70%, like I said, is experience, right? So sometimes, especially with like masterminds, I've invested in all sorts of containers. A lot of times I'll find that I'll have breakthroughs like 6 months after the container ended. And that was a 6-month container itself, or like a 4-month container where I'll have breakthroughs a year later. Like that's happened to me before where I've messaged a coach a year later realizing that something had landed big time. But it was like the course of me, what a container gives you is the tools. Actually utilizing the tools and continuing to utilize the tools is outside of that container. You don't need to always be invested. I say that very, very, because I think there's this story that is often running around that you always have to be invested in something high ticket to be a legit coach. I think, or a business owner sometimes, like, are you investing in your personal development? I think that's up to you. I think if you are continuously applying and learning from your investments in integrity, then that's a personal call. And I think your energy will tell the truth of it and you will attract the people that you're meant to attract if you continue to show up, if you continue to learn, if you continue to find places to ask for support. So that's kind of been my experience with like ROI on containers.
Yeah, that's quite insightful. I know you mentioned networking when you were in corporate and then moving into the entrepreneur space. And how did the way you network change over time?
I think before it was very like moving through the motions of it. I feel like I would have like very surface level connection in networking. There would be kind of a corporate face that I would put on, I felt, versus networking more honestly in my job search posts. So I took a little bit of a sabbatical kind of because I was still doing coaching training and building up my business. So, or going through activities, volunteering in the community, that kind of a thing. So still kind of doing, I was still active in different ways in that period between not having corporate roles. But when I decided to go back into getting a corporate job to support my entrepreneurial journey, I networked way differently just because I was more connected to myself. So there was a more of authentic relating kind of happening within the networking. And there'll be a lot of people who will have advice on what networking is, especially in the corporate world. Everyone literally will have a perspective on what networking is. And I kind of had to learn to take everyone's advice with a grain of salt and really choose, like, I'm going to define what networking is to me. I think as soon as I made that decision, it changed the game for me. Like instantly, not only was I started enjoying the process, but I was learning skills through networking. Networking in and of itself is a skill that can be built no matter what part of the career path. Even if you're job searching, you can build it like now, you know, and it's a key skill. So I think that would be what's changed. It was like I was more passionate about it and I found my deeper value in it, which, like I said, intimacy, intimate connecting.
So did you have certain sites or certain groups that you went to like initially when you were networking for your job and then later on was there like different sites or like did you reach out to different types of people or
Yeah, I mean, I really tried a lot of different tools. I think most recently, I would say LinkedIn has been my primary networking tool in the job search space. Instagram, Facebook have been my primary networking tools in the entrepreneurial space. I think one thing that I experienced was tool exhaustion. So I think one thing I had to kind of do was really focus on the tools that supported my energy the most. I really find that, and I think this isn't often talked about, is energy is like 90% of the game. Like how you feel, how you relate to it, how you show up. And it's like the intangible thing. Like no one's really walking around being like, there's no like out external indicator as to what my energy reads today, right? But it's like that intangible part that affects like 90% of what goes right in my life. So I would say with tools, those few tools that I named were actually the ones that supported me the most and continue to support me the most. Um, I think the other thing that helps with is focus, right? Because it makes it easier to kind of overcome the resistance that comes with networking, and it also allows me to stay focused on the connection building rather than tool managing, right? Of course,
uh,
we have to use some tools. Can't just be like, oh, I'm not gonna, look at any tools. But too many tools can take away from the energy that is spent in the actual connecting, which is actually the most important part.
yeah, because once you have that connection you might move it to email to the Zoom call to something else.
Mhm.
um so yeah, it's not about the tool, about the people you meet.
Yep. The tools are just a bridge. The tools are just a bridge. I wouldn't recommending, I don't know if you believe in angel numbers, but I just saw 555 as we were talking. So, um, but I think I lost my point here. Let me just come back to it. you said it's about the people you meet. I think that's such a good reframe. Is I think one thing that shifted from like when networking was more transactional to me to more authentic relating was feeling grateful about the people I met and really centering it on care for the people I met and how could I leave support this person in the moment. That's the where I found that I actually effectively connected with people, and honestly that opened up opportunities to support people more. That's one thing in entrepreneurship, and I feel like I'm really leaning to a new edge with this is like taking the support or taking the focus off of what can I get to how can I support. And I found that once I did that, the opportunities naturally flowed because when I focus on supporting, I got more opportunities to continue supporting. And that is what gave me, and that will give me bigger opportunities than if I'm just trying to get out of people. Because that energy, even just the energy, and that wasn't why I personally, I was like, I remind myself, like, I didn't start a business just to get, in this case, money or whatever that surface level thing is. I started this business. There's a lot of ways to make money. The business, I wouldn't say the entrepreneurial journey is the easiest way to make money. Maybe for some people it is. I mean, I think eventually if you get into it, but I didn't start this particular business to only make money. I'm not going to say making money isn't part of the journey because money is a resource that allows me to serve deeper. And it's definitely a desire. But the core reason that I started the business was this particular business is to support people in the way that I was meant to.
Such a profound statement that it's not just about money. The business is also about helping people.
Yeah. I think tapping into that deeper why has so essential in working through challenges. Because the business is gonna get business, career, whatever, really, whatever path you choose, life is gonna have its challenges. There's no, and I say this because I just remembering, I had a kind of a topsy-turvy journey in starting my business. I actually started my business full time. I was like, I am going to just run the business. And I didn't realize while the business started was a well-intentioned start, like I want to help people in XYZ way. There's also this undercurrent of using it as an escape route from corporate. And not just from corporate itself, but what it represented to me, which was responsibility, stepping into a bigger version of myself, past trauma that I had dealt with that had been triggered through my corporate experience. And the thing is, business is not an escape from any of these. In fact, if anything, my entrepreneurial journey has triggered these even more deeply. Especially like the past trauma, that's still going to be triggered. There's still a different form of responsibility, right? I think that's the biggest misnomer about freedom sometimes, which is I know reason a lot of entrepreneurs start their businesses to lifestyle and monetary freedom. Freedom comes with responsibility, right? Especially if you are on a mission to serve people. If people are signing up for your service, there is a responsibility to hold them and provide value to them and support them. That just changes the channel through which you do it changes if you go from corporate to business, but it's still there. So that's what I found is that I had to remember that business was a route to serve a deeper purpose. It was not an escape route from the healing that corporate invited me into. It was just a different channel. And if anything, it was actually a more challenging channel. So I almost had to take more ownership and more responsibility, especially as a CEO. That's a huge difference between corporate leader, and I'm talking about like non-CEO corporate leaders versus being a CEO of your own business. You're reporting to yourself now. You don't have another external manager holding your way of like, it's a self-leadership. You are leading yourself. That's the biggest difference. That's a higher level of responsibility. It's a higher level of ownership, actually. So that's been a huge difference in, and needless to say, I actually went from the full-time to the part-time journey. So I actually went back and I'm finding more fulfillment. And I wanted to mention that because I know we talked about variations journey and that, I know there's people listening to this that may have different needs as far as what they can do entrepreneurially. And I would say don't not start your business because it has to be part-time. I gave into this story that I had to go full time to be all in on my business. And that's not it, all in is not about full time. It's about the conviction you have within the journey. It's the conviction with whatever hours you set aside during the week. It's the conviction with which you show up during those hours. That's the all in part. And yeah, there might be, I guess I don't want to say limitations, but adaptations you have to make to run it part-time. But I think about it this way is like when I tried to run it full-time, I was really operating from financial scarcity because I didn't have the sustenance at the moment to pay my bills forever. I had a nice nest egg from which I was working with, but if I didn't bring money in, and I had this deeper scarcity around that. So it really depends on how you feel around wealth, and that's been a whole shift. But basically, to wrap this up, I found more fulfillment going part-time with my business and actually been able to make more progress that way than when I was trying to run it full-time.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind that everyone's journey with that might be a little bit different too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very unique journey for every person. So I think it's really important to tune into like what are my actual needs and what can I do? What's the best I can do with what I have?
So, would you say you're more introverted or more extroverted, and how does that affect your networking strategies?
I'm definitely more introverted. I would say I'm an extroverted introvert, so I still enjoy connecting with with the aligned people. That really fills my cup. But there's definitely a point at which I do need to retreat, take care of myself, and I think everyone has this point, introvert or extrovert. But I believe that I had to be more discerning in my networking journey because of being an introvert. And I also had to shift the stories I told myself around being an introvert and that doesn't add value in a networking conversation and just change my approach. So rather than like, I used to try to take an extrovert approach. I had to connect with as many people as possible. And one that exhausted me. Two, it actually created more resistance to even showing up. And three, I didn't wasn't really adding value as much as I could because it was inauthentic. I wasn't connecting, nor was I adding value in the way I could. So then I shifted towards creating quality connections and really I was going to a networking session setting an intention of please take me to the people that need my support. This is the core intention, and I find that it usually works. So I usually connect with either people I can collaborate with to serve our communities together, like me and you are right now, and or I actually, reach the people that need my support as a coach or in some other capacity. So I think changing my approach actually served me well. It allowed me to deepen my support and it just looks different. That doesn't mean that you're supporting less. It's not always about quantity. I'm not going to say like you don't have to put the reps in or talk to people and stuff like that. You do have to show up and, do iterations of things to like build behaviors, but it can look different. And a lot of conditioning is definitely around extroversion. So say if you're an extrovert and that works for you, great. And even, there's different levels of extroversion. So I think really it comes back to using your inner compass to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and being okay with doing it differently than just because everyone else around you doesn't mean you have to force yourself into it. There's always someone who is doing it in the way you're doing it. Or you could try something new.
Do you prefer networking in groups or having more of those one-to-one conversations?
I think it's a combination. I really like small group environments because I do like that I can connect with a couple people. I will say even big group environments can be very overwhelming for me, so I have to really use my gut for those. Um, One-on-one is definitely preferred. I think the more discern again, just having like qualifiers, honestly, and really spending energy on the things that activate me the most is key to my networking strategy.
Makes sense. Would you say getting comfortable being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's part of the human skill set. If you're truly living a you can't I find that I can't live a fulfilling life without being uncomfortable, because living a fulfilling life means going beyond my boundaries, which means discomfort.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. Like when I wasn't stepping outside of my comfort zone, it was actually very uncomfortable, like all of the time.
Mm.
So then, like stepping outside of it, like, yeah. So I know you said you were on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm not sure, like, has cold messages and getting pitched like been an issue for you, or is it like something that you do, or
No, I don't believe in cold pitching. I believe in creating a connection and then, inviting people into something that actually is a fit for them. I've been definitely been cold pitched to before, and it's very much like, but I don't know you, because like I said, I believe that 90% of the game is energy. So when I'm hiring someone, it's not just for their product, it's for their energy, and I can't feel out someone's energy if they're cold pitching me. I mean, sometimes I will if I'm really intrigued, but like it's rare. And cold pitching will use like cold pitching in the sense of like not asking a light question to kind of warm me up will usually turn me off to the point where I won't even bother usually to look at the services, or it'll be very rare that I come back to the services.
so do you use a lot of direct messages on these platforms?
Oh yeah, I definitely use direct messages. I think it's about having a relating strategy over just a cold pitch. Like, oh, I am this and I offer this. Do you want this? That's usually not going to work because you've created no connection with the person. And you can create a connection, you can warm someone up. I wouldn't say pretty fast, but like within a series of messages. Like it's not impossible. It's not like, yes, like keeping up a connection is definitely important. I'm not going to say that. Like businesses are run through connection, right? It's not just about that one product that you want to invite them to. That's not the point. The point isn't to get them as a client. The point is to connect with them and see if there's someone you can help, support, and then inviting them if it's an alignment with their needs. And I fell on my face a lot in this journey. I still fall on my face. Like there's been tons of no's. And a no is one coach that I work with, another container, told me this. A no is a not yet. And so looking at a no is a not yet. And some connections, it will feel like, okay, this is just not a person that's a fit right now. Like their needs just don't align with what I support. Sometimes it might be like you might know someone, another coach, another person who can support them. So I always try to move with like, I'm going to try to help this person as much as I can, whether that's a connection with myself, that's my services, whatever it is, it's centered around the person's support. And yes, this can feel like a longer journey, but it's a more sustainable path and it's a more authentic path. Again, I didn't start this business to just get money or get clients, to look like a certain coach. So I think going back to like, that's why I don't use cold pitching and that's why I don't respond well to cold pitching.
Sounds fair enough. What are your thoughts on tapping into your intuition when networking?
It's like a non-negotiable in my experience. Like, it's hard though. I will say it's been and I used to consider myself a very intuitive person before I got into business. So it was interesting to actually start integrating it more into like my career. I think I was comfortable using intuition in a lot of spaces that were non-career related. So I think in business, or in networking, it was sometimes and I find this to be a common challenge among my clients too, is like this over reliance on logic. And I think a lot of high achievers or people with big dreams are taught, they have like great minds, they have brilliant minds, but I've found that my brain isn't designed to do everything. So it's really understanding the function of what my brain can serve and figuring out what role intuition plays and really combining the two. So I think intuition for me, I realized one, intuition has 100% hit rate. I think this was my biggest realization was like, I'm like, any decision that I made with intuition was turned out to be the best for me. And any decision that I made against intuition, I realized later that my intuition was right. So like I said, 100% hit rate. So if, and one way even knowing that, I still find it to be a challenge. It's a practice. I have to actively practice using my intuition, when it comes to networking, when it comes to business. But it's worth it. It's worth it to learn it as a skill because, intuition's like everyone's inner compass.
Yeah, and it's also different than feelings in the moment.
Exactly.
Because you could be nervous about going to a networking event, but your intuition could be saying, go to that networking event.
Yeah. I think I think this is a difference that I had to learn what you're bringing up. I think is like the difference between fear and intuition,
Yeah,
because I guess that fear can show up in an intuitive voice. Sometimes it can feel like it doesn't feel like intuition. It sounds like intuition because it sounds like an initial instinct because it can pick up really fast. And I realized that the difference, first I had to identify like, okay, is this my fear or my intuition? But I found this is where the energy comes into play, right? Intuition feels very grounded and clear and just it's like a knowing. It's just like I know. It's like what you said, like this happened to me with networking events a lot, right? I would sign up because my intuition was like, just go do it. And intuition won't tell you why. It'll just be like, go do it. So there's a lot of trust involved with intuition because there isn't a lot of context given around intuition. It just says, do this, do that. This is it. This is that. Like that's how intuition works, which is nice because it's super simple, but there's a trust and a faith involved and a practice, really. It's an active practice. It's not like a one time and done kind of thing. Versus fear, I found that no, it'll come with like this frenzied energy, like I have to act right now kind of thing. Whereas intuition, it's available to act on whenever you want to. Now, well, I know one pattern I've fallen into just postponing it. I can act on intuition whenever. But the cost of that, not living my most fulfilling life in the moment, that's the cost. And also not helping who I could help. That's also the other cost of it. Um, So I think that is like what you're talking to is like the fear and the intuition being learning how to tell the difference. And sometimes it's okay to act out of fear. It's part of the journey, it's part of being human. And also I think it's also it helps you recognize when you're acting out of fear versus intuition. That's like part of the practice is learning from the times maybe you do act out of fear. I'm like, oh, actually my intuition was saying this. And if I'd listened to it, boom, you know?
yeah, it's been a practice for me too, and something I continue to work on and improving. Any closing remarks or things you would like to add?
Um, I'm thinking if I were like if someone was watching this and they were like, I want to start my soul line business, what could they do today? I think that would be super helpful. So if you're watching this, or if you're questioning your entrepreneurial journey, how do you keep showing up? I think one is either learn your why or tap into your why, right? Why do you want to start this business or why did you start this business? And a couple ways you can do that is honestly think about what is that purpose? What do you find purpose in? And what do you find passion in? I think part of me, I listen to meditations a lot. So sometimes having someone else talk to you is nice because it kind of overrides your own inner voice. And honestly, just realizing that showing up for your why is internally fulfilling, regardless of what the result is. It's just fulfilling. I mean, I will be completely transparent that I had a lot of stories running a couple days ago where I was like, I'm not Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is like a rite of passage, practically, I would say, at least, especially in the first few years of business. And then I was like, remember the moments that you're just like walk off a conversation or walk off a coaching session so fulfilled. Like it doesn't even matter what the result was because I know I helped someone and that person got helped even more like than me helping them. They got support to go be the best version of themselves or live a more fulfilling life, which then they will go support someone else in that. That is like that effect, that ripple effect of the energetic ripple effect of just showing up that way is reason in and of itself to try or not to try to do. So that's what I would say. It's tapping back into the why is a huge reason why you should start your business or why you should keep going with your business.
I love that. And especially because I think sometimes people start their business and then they kind of forgot why they did,
Yeah,
especially when things get hard.
yeah. Because they will. You could get to 6K or whatever, even monetary goal you have, and there will be challenges that pop up. That's just kind of part of life.
So, do you have anything else?
I did want to add just your journey can look like really picking and choosing the journey that really supports your unique needs, your unique, passions, your unique health needs, and taking the outside world in as a source of inspiration rather than shoulds. It's a lens through which we consume because I've had parts of my journey where I've shut myself off because of just overwhelm and but that also was not a good place to be because I wasn't connected to anything, loss of inspiration. So it's finding this like filter to engage with the world through the lens of inspiration and curiosity and balancing it and filtering it through your internal compass, but not shutting off, like not over relying on your internal compass to point you isolate. I think is like a fine balance. So that would be the other thing I'd have to add to those watching, especially those learning how to network.
Yeah, that's why I talk so much about using your intuition to help with networking rather than just sitting there
Right.
meditating and being in your own energy, because that by itself isn't enough to get you the results. The
Right.
networking is
Exactly.
part of it.
Exactly. You have to be out there practicing because meditation, all these tools are great, but they can also turn. And I say this from the humblest of places because I've done all this. And I'm shifting myself out of doing these things of like, especially as an introvert, like using meditation and picking my tarot cards and like I'm just taking care of myself. All those excuses to not go out into the world, try things, do things, support others, etc.
Yeah, I found where I do use tarot cards is like there's two conflicting networking events and I can't decide which one to go to. Then I pick the tarot cards, but I'm actually going to the networking event. I'm
There you
not
go.
just reading cards.
Exactly. That's what I love that. Yeah, exactly. I use meditations in between my sessions in my corporate role to like discharge energy because of course there's energetic buildup or like before this conversation like I was getting into a flow kind of like centering myself taking a couple breaths like using these tools like actively and I'm a huge fan of like easy to use tools that I can use on the go so that I can be in multiple places at once and still use that like breath meditation things like that.
Anything else?
Oh my goodness, I think that, sorry, I think that's a lot. I think we've given the audience a lot to chew on. So
Yeah,
I
thank
thought
you
we
so
just kind
much.
of leave it off there.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Of course, thank you for having me. And if anyone resonates or wants to connect with me, we'll drop, please hop into the group, hop into Lori's group, and also I'll drop my Instagram or we'll drop my Instagram into the YouTube or wherever you're watching this. And so please come connect with me. I would love to continue the conversation, get you support, whatever it is that you need.
It's great to have you.
Thank you. Likewise, great to be on here.